Welcome to Inside the Leader's Mind, where what's in the way becomes the way. I'm your host, David Susan, and today's guest, Ike Wilson. He's a strategic theorist, a national security analyst whose work focuses on how societies, institutions, businesses, and military systems withstand or fail to withstand compound stress. He writes about resilience, leadership, and the future of democratic governance, and his general theory of compound security has been used to reframe how leaders think about complexity, shocks, and organizational adaptability. His work bridges from the worlds of strategy, psychology, and civic culture, and he brings a perspective that connects the battlefield, the boardroom, and the broader democratic landscape. Please welcome Ike Wilson.
David, so great to be with you. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the conversation before us.
Well, I love having you. I always do a prep for those of you that are listening for the first time. I always do a prep call to meet my guest ahead of time, and I always learn a little bit about him. And I know you've spent your career helping people and organizations
Right.
to be able to lead under pressure. What
Yes.
experience first shaped how you think about leadership?
Oh, well, I would have to, growing up as a military brat in a military family, inevitably, subconsciously, that had an impact. Probably my first impact, just watching my father go through that experience. But for me, myself, probably my West Point experience. West Point, 4 years there at the military academy. Yeah, it's a crucible. It's dedicated crucible for um, forged in fire, if you will, and putting us individually through socialization and a build up process, a 4 year what they call the West Point experience. And every day, every moment of every day is an individual growth opportunity through puzzles, problems, and seeing the opportunity on the other side of the puzzle of the problem and working through the problem over, under, around, if you will, to actually get to the opportunity. So seeing both sides of a challenge, seeing both sides of a challenge. I think that's one of the things I bring to bear with what I do with my company, and it began at West Point. Leader challenges through moments of transition. The other thing I think helped me was not just the individual experience, but learning how to work complex, converging compound dilemmas, those puzzles, through teaming operations and teaming effects. Importantly, coming through and being pressed through situations to where the design of the leader challenge is such that there is almost like a Star Trek Kobayashi Maru, the no win scenario for all your geek
That
Star
don't
Trekker
know,
fans out
and the
there.
ones that don't know
But
Star Trek, right? The Kobayashi Maru it's a no win, right?
it's the no win scenario. Again, only one person ever beat the Kobayashi Maru, James T. Kirk, and he actually cheated. He unplugged the machine and reprogrammed it to his parameters.
Oh, now you
But
just
putting
spoiler alert.
Yep, spoiler alert. Sorry, everyone. But deliberately putting us through scenarios where there, in a way, is no individual solution. And so the challenge is getting people to humbly understand and becoming humbly confident in what they're able to do on their own, and more importantly, what they must do through teaming efforts. And so I would say at the heart of me as an individual, as a professional, and certainly what I do through or try to do through my academic work, my advisory and consulting work, it's all about teams. And I'll make up a word: teaming. It's all about
Love it.
teaming. So I'll
Love it.
pause there.
Oh, no, I love it. And in the introduction, you talked about compound stress. For people
Yes.
listening, and for myself, what does
Yeah.
that mean in simple everyday terms?
Yeah, simple terms.
Compound
I've got a whole
stress.
theory on this. I've been working on this. It's called the general theory of compound security. It's really about dealing with compound insecurity. Let's think about it this way. We all understand, I have a subconscious understanding and appreciation for, in a household financial way, the benefits, the exponential benefits of compound interest, right? Put a dollar in, you get dollar cost average, exponential returns. If you have the patience to just not look at the market, let the dollar build exponentially, 30-year, you get huge exponential yields. That's all goodness. Think about the dark opposite of that, and that's where you get into the realm of compound risk, compound insecurity, compound security dynamics. A compound stress is more than just a single stressor. Say, at your household, you've got a kid, he's got a flu. But then that cascades into other problems that cascade with that. It's a flu, but they also have maybe an autoimmune deficiency that makes the flu a cascaded problem. They've gone to school that day. You didn't find out that they were sick until they went to school. They picked up other germs. They had other dynamics that come into interplay. It's all about that interplay of otherwise separate, or like the way we like to think about it and approach it, singular, separate, discrete threats and challenges, things that we can handle if it's just that one single threat line and challenge line. But the convergence and the compounding of all of these other dynamics, it kind of creates in the historical sense, a Gordian knot of struggles. That's compound stress. It's really the difference in the psychological, in a psychology sense. It's the difference between acute and chronic stress. Right? We live in an environment today, and we've lived in this environment for quite a long time. I would say I would mark it going back to at least the end of the Cold War. In an accelerated pace, the world's just gotten a lot more complicated, complex. People are familiar with the concept of wicked problems, right? Those problems where you apply a normal traditional dose, a single dose to the problem, and not only do you not solve the problem, but you actually make it more angry, right? That wicked problem. All those things create what's called a compound stress environment. The convergence of otherwise discrete challenges and threats and stressors, diseases included. We're talking about this medically, biologically, and materially, all that coming together at particular moments and typically particular moments and places in space and time of transition, already ambiguous moments. You get an exponential multiplicative negative consequence, hence the polar opposite of the great goodness we count on with putting a dollar
It's
in and letting
stress.
it build over time for compound
Now,
interest.
does this
Yeah,
also apply in corporate America?
it
Where
absolutely
for a
does.
lead, is there, and I don't want to put you on the spot here to pull it out, but maybe work you've done. Could you give me a scenario, make one up if you want, of compound stress within an organization, what that might look like or what you've seen?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. This is the reality that we live in, and what I've spent my time as an applied researcher. I spend my time as an academic and as a researcher, 30 plus years, um, thinking about this, running this through models, in the classroom, in the laboratory. But as a global affairs practitioner, 33 years in the military, and my military background is really odd and peculiar. Not only in the field, but when I wasn't in the field, I was in classrooms, I was in boardrooms. I really lived at the nexus of what I call the 3D times C interface, the world of defense, development, diplomacy in the commercial realm. I kind of became the guy that they would throw those problems that lie at the nexus of all those different, the way we structure the world. The real interesting puzzles lie in between, in the spaces in between, right? And so that's where I would end up finding my place. I think one of the things I developed over the years, through these crucibles, is just the ability to live in that nexus, see those interconnections,
So, an
kind of force
example.
to foresee those interconnections. So the example I'll give you, a project I did in 2017, 2018. I was called upon. I'll try to keep the long story very short. At the time, the Republic of Macedonia, the country of Macedonia, now North Macedonia, in South Central Europe, they were bidding for years to be considered for entry into the European Union, and a critical road, mile marker towards that eventuality, membership in NATO. They had a couple of years of devoted time supported by the European Union, the United Nations, and the United States through our USAID developmental agency to help them in their small d democratization process to meet major milestones, to be worthy of consideration. Things happen, life occurs, and they were not able to, and they also had a transition of government during that time period. They found themselves about 90 days left, before the report card was due. And all the big consulting firms kind of took a step back and said, well, looks like a mission impossible because there's no time, the space is not right. You just can't get from A to Z in this time frame. Um, it came around to me. I knew it was the last minute, and it was kind of like being asked to present at a conference 30 to 45 days before the event when the thing's been planned for a year. You know that a lot of people have dropped out, right? And so I got called in, identified the problem, and identified the opportunity, brought one expert with me, tailor made to the puzzle. And the puzzle that we were given specifically was to help them get through two major developments: development of a national strategy for countering violent extremism in the country, and a companion strategy and action plan for countering terrorism. Those two major things that if they didn't pass that test, have those strategies that are viable and implementable, they weren't going to, they're going to miss they're going to miss the policy opportunity window. Spent 60 days on the ground with the team, came with a preliminary idea of some of the things that this thing needed to have, put that in the back pocket, and then went in with humble confidence, embedded in the team, helped them build a team amongst themselves, and deal with all those cross challenges, to include limited time and space to get the mission done. And in less than 60 days, they were able to produce very robust policies. We know a year later, North Macedonia was assessed into NATO, a proud
Cool.
NATO member now. And one thing I'm very proud of, not only did it help that country in the NATO alliance, but the wider Western Balkans region have been since looking at those models as exemplars to build a larger trans-regional strategy in that respect. So
Very cool.
taking an opportunity like that, a challenge, seeing the opportunity in picking the team properly. I knew I needed a civil affairs expert, native speaker of the local languages, had served there under the years back in the 90s with the Peace Corps. And between what we could bring with us together, um, embedded with their team, help them build a team of teams and achieve the unachievable.
Very cool.
Approaching a compound problem in a compound way.
So when you talk about, so we talk compound stress, compounding, it
Yeah.
specifically also in the introduction, it talks about the general theory of compound security.
Yes.
What is that
What
different?
is
Is
that about?
compound security and more importantly, why does it matter to leaders today?
Yeah,
So what
compounds is
is it
so.
and why
So
compound?
everything I just described, it's built up. All these experiences and practices, from boardrooms to battlefields and back again, negotiation rooms in between. 30 years of experience living at this nexus space. I've been studying. I'm an academic as well. Kind of live a Indiana Jones lifestyle, right? And I'm an archaeologist, and when I'm not in the field doing different forms of field work in archaeology, I'm in the classroom. I'm a professor. And so I've been studying this and also field testing it. And in respect to the wars that we've had, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, et cetera, the conflicts we're currently having, I've had the opportunity, we'll put it, to go into those crucibles and actually bring the theory with me, this different way of seeing and understanding the system itself, the environment itself, and approaching the environmental changes from a systemic standpoint. I've had the rare opportunity to actually do that as an operator in the field, a leader operator on campaigns, military, humanitarian, operational campaigns, and to bring the theory to bear. Along the way, I've gotten a reputation, and people have been knowledgeable of the general theory of compound security, that they've brought me into these
So
puzzles,
let me back hang on,
specifically to bring the theory to bear.
let me back up. What
Yeah,
actually is compound security? The word security is what I'm kind of getting
s-
hung up on there.
compound security is about resilience, right? It's about power and a reconsideration and re-understanding of what power really is. Frankly, what strength is, right? People think about strength. You say words like strength, people are thinking about material force. We tend to think about force, and we conflate force and power. What the compound security concept is about is understanding that in the world that we live in, all this complexity, complicatedness, wicked problem dynamics, and this convergence of compounding issues, the system itself, strength, power, real power, not just force of arms, instrumental force, whether it's economic, military, diplomatic, commercial. It's force put to purpose, which equals and adds over time, which adds up to power.
Got it.
Strength and power is really about the system itself and how resilient that system is. Now, that system could be an individual, a strength and resilience of self, redundancy in self, so you can take the blows. And that old saying, not so old saying, that which does not kill me makes me stronger.
Sure.
A truth in that, a truth in that. You can take that from the individual to the household to the state, the local level, to country level, to community of country levels, the global system itself. How resilient is a community of democracies? How resilient, system resilient, is a NATO alliance, as an example, under the body blows that it's been getting since the end of the Cold War, and particularly since 2014 with multiple assaults by Putin's Russia, as one example. How resilient is say a drone company? I've had an opportunity last year to work with a couple of leading edge drone companies and radar companies. um, they were they were lacking resilience in how they were approaching the instrumental drone capability problem, because they were not up to speed and up to date with the system, with the environment demanding a utility and a use and utility of that specific technology. So what they were spot on, and no one could touch them in terms of the expert knowledge of that capability. But what they were missing was the utility of that capability in an environment. So being able to advise them and help them understand the utility of drone systems and unique drone systems, disruptive technologies they were bringing to the market, but how to make that more unique and peculiar to the environment of constant transition and change. That's a game changer. Helped put that company already at the leading edge ahead of herd, because it was not just an instrumental use, but it was also a utility married with and really reverse engineered and derived from the changes in the environment of conduct itself. So
Wow.
most of my research and much of my study is about system resiliency and the redundancy and the need to build redundancy in systems from the individual to the global level, so that you can take a shock. It's almost like being a willow instead of an oak tree, right? And really
Blend
a
with it.
hybrid of some places you need
Yeah.
oak strength.
Yeah.
Most other places, especially at those critical nexus nodes, you need tensile strength. You need bendability, and the ability to bend without breaking. That's true for leader development. That's true for individuals going through transitions. That's true for households. That's true for marriages. That's true for companies going through various stages from startup to expansion, across all the way through succession, through a life cycle of a company and a business. It's certainly true for global security alliances and in the world system itself.
So
Hopefully that
once,
hopefully that helps to explain a bit, but it's a whole
yeah,
different way of thinking about power and force, and it's really equating strength with system resiliency. That's what
so
compound
once
security is.
once a leader understands this, right?
Mhm.
How does it change how they approach complexity or uncertainty in their world?
I was I was watching something. One of the things I like to do, I'm a big geek on documentaries, and I love space, anything space related, right? And I was watching a documentary. It's probably on the Geek NASA channel, right? They were interviewing some of the older astronauts, and to a person, they all express how they changed as a human being when the first time they went into space and looked back at the small blue marble that's our planet Earth, and it changed their perspective. It helped them in a way. It humbled them. It made them understand that we're only one small piece of a larger, more complex, elegantly complex universe. But it at the same time, it humbled them in that respect, but gave them a humble confidence and understand that we're very unique. We're a very unique, a small but unique, unique aspect of that. Really draw that as a metaphor to what this does to for myself and for leaders in general, and what I help try to do with my advisory and consulting work. Try to help those leaders understand and appreciate that when you can understand the compounded complexity of systems, in of their own companies. It can give them a healthy, humble confidence in knowing that they're part of a larger, complex system. And here's the most important, I think, humbling part, that I am a key node in this, but I'm not the only node,
Yeah.
right? And now teaming is not a nice thing to have. Teaming and collaboration is essential. You cannot get the power equation, a Newtonian physics kind of way. Power equals work over time, or force times displacement, how you put force to bear over a time period. You can't get the power equation, whether it's a small disruptive technology startup or a country. You can't get that power equation to equate without humbling yourself in terms of you not only being no longer being the sole instrument of force and consequence, and that you have to change that force variable to a more teaming and collaborative approach. The power equation just won't equate. The equation will not solve under these
Right.
compound, complex, and wicked problem situations. I'm sure I talk to CEOs and C-suite leaders all the time, and this is the core part of their transition dilemma. It's like, well, we're doing the same things we've always done. We've been at the top of the market. All the normal KPI measures are they're the same we've always used, and all of us, it seems all of a sudden, almost like a light switch or maybe a dimmer switch on speed turn. All of a sudden, we're putting the same instrumentality, the same force to bear, same economic investment, same talent investment, same HR processes that we've always done. But all of a sudden, it's not getting us the power purchase, whether that's measured in profit and or performance and reputational power. And I oftentimes hear more than that, that not only is it not no longer getting us our ways, our business practices aren't getting us the same purchase. It seems like it's deleterious. The more we do the things that we've done the same ways that we've done in the past, it seems to be moving us march step back. And that's
Right.
where C-suites start to get disconnected from their program management levels, and say-do gaps start to develop within these organizations.
So
That's
let me
true for businesses. That's true for governments and their societies, et cetera, et cetera.
let me tag off of that a little bit. As you've worked
Excellent.
with leaders, you've worked with uh, guided soldiers and institutions through transition, through change. What separates the people who adapt well from
Mhm.
those who struggle?
It was told to me by a young soldier and their spouse years ago, and I've heard it in different ways, but not as eloquently as I heard it from the soldier and his spouse, his wife. They said it's not so much preparing me for the specific task and expert knowledge for my next job, though that is very important. It's building a confidence in my preparedness. That's a quote. They said, I'm what I need and what I feel I'm getting out of this transition conversation, this transition dialogue, is an enhanced confidence in my preparedness, a better sense and understanding of all those transitional dynamics that are going on around me. What transition means, whether it's for a soldier and their family leaving the cloth of the nation and transitioning. I call it repatriation, reintegration, repatriation back into civil society, especially for those young soldiers who've been a part of a unique and peculiar club, if you will, for a long time. In many ways, serving, of course, serving the society, but many ways removed from that society. Who am I? What is my identity now? The world is about to change, and it's changing, and I don't understand the change. Helping and counseling and advising folks to understand the environment itself of change itself, and giving them a confidence that, hey, here are the things you worked throughout your career up to this point. Helping a CEO realize, hey, you remember when you were a startup, maybe you were just starting and you went through those transitions. Helping them identify that they're at a moment of transition, contextualize what that transition moment is about, where I am now, what got me here and us here, and where we're going and why. Helping them identify that first, and then the confidence building and that preparedness to lead themselves and others through that transition window with enhanced, humble, confident insight, foresight, and intentionality. That's really what Wilson Wise Strategic Enterprises is all about. Yeah, and
Very
I
cool.
I started this as a young officer. I just had some very really unique opportunities, a lot of education, and a lot of field experience bombarded upon me at a very young age. And um, before you know it, you have a bank of experiences behind you, a reputation develops, and I became the person that when the puzzle looked odd and unlike what we were used to, I would get the leader 2 echelons above me to come into my plans room, papers disheveled, piles of different disparate things in one of those rooms with no windows, and, give me the puzzle, give me a certain amount of hours to work with a team to come up with some alternative ways through, around, over, and under, those sticky wicket moments. That's under fire in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. That's working with companies right here in the United States and abroad, trying to bring their disruptive technology, as one example, to positive public-private bearing on not just solving the problems of the moment and reacting to a change, but here's the trick, David, being able to foresee probabilistically and do some preventive investments at some of those critical points in your own company, in your own organization. Um, in order to prove the negative, if you will, to avoid the problems, because we have a high probability of accuracy that if we don't do anything different, bad things are going to happen at that location, at that critical node between our economic investment model, our talent development model, et cetera, et cetera. Being able to identify that early on and then do some preventive things. It changes the whole architecture from a negative aims based approach, always running against change instead of riding the wave of change and really dominating it because you're at the forefront of it. That it sounds high, it sounds philosophical, but it's very doable. And the reason why I can say that, people can go check out. I encourage them to check out wilsonwise consulting.com, the website. A lot of testimonials there, a lot of examples, a couple of case examples that go into plain spoken detail on, how do you help, how do you solve the unsolvable problem? How do you beat the Kobayashi Maru? I just don't believe in the no-win scenario. I think you just change the parameters of the game.
There you go. You
Yeah.
unplug it. I want to shift gears just because of time here a little bit. And
Sure.
I do want to ask you one of the things when we talked that I was absolutely fascinated by was your Walk With Me episodes.
Yeah.
Where you imagine, for those of you you don't know what that is, it's where you imagine conversations with
Yeah.
other leaders like Eisenhower or Mandela,
Exactly.
and I think
Exactly.
that's super powerful. What have those experiences revealed about your own leadership journey?
Yeah. Thanks for asking me this question. It gives me an opportunity to talk about, one of the things I bring to bear in my the wise way, my proprietary approach to strategic advisory planning, and consulting, is narrative and storytelling. Strategy is storytelling. Human beings are about stories. We tell stories. We sit around campfires or the digital equivalents to them today, and we tell ourselves story. Go pull up Instagram, and it's a series of quick snapshot storytells. I've dealt with a lot of organizations that at the core, special operations forces. I've worked with them a lot of times in a lot of different scenarios over the years. Heart and soul about storytelling. What the Walk With Me segments are, they're audio immersion experiences as part of my podcast called The Civic Brief. And they're short 10 to 15-minute audio immersions with soundscape. So we shut down some proprioceptive and visual senses so we can heighten others' hearing and internal imagination and internal sighting. And with the soundscape in my narration, I walk folks through a retrospective future scenario. So, like you said, David, my first one I did back in August was a walk through the beaches of Normandy, the hallways of Columbia University, the Oval Office, and front porch conversation and rocking chairs in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, at Dwight D. Eisenhower's farm. A walk with me with Dwight D. Eisenhower, not just as a historical retrospective for history's sake, but more importantly, for going back and pulling some of these folks on the bookshelves here, some of these icons who've gone through transitions and challenges, iconic tectonic changes, and to bring them to our contemporary time and help us call the lessons worth gathering from those historical experiences, discarding those that don't apply to us, bringing them to our contemporary moment and helping us think and apply those forward. So I just did my most recent one. I did a walkabout with two U.S. presidents, Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter, and I was able to talk to them both about what they kind of like you're doing, like we're doing today. What strengths, what weaknesses you bring to bear, have them contest one another between each other, and then most importantly, to have them talk about the other. So I had a President Jimmy Carter talk about the attribute he liked the most and wished he had himself during his term of presidency from the likes of a Reagan typology and vice versa, because the ultimate answer was at that nexus. America today and the world needs leaders that bring the kind of affable strength in a traditional understanding of what strength is and has been from a Ronald Reagan, but also that core morality that we attribute to a Jimmy Carter, president and more importantly, his post life. So to be able to bring those folks, back figuratively back to life and to bring us into our contemporary times, it's really important, I find, in leader transition and leader development, because we have to practice and build a muscle of creative thinking. It's important to help people become better critical thinkers for critical application of use and utility of different types of instrumental force, business, public, private, governmental, non-governmental, et cetera. But if we're going to get in front of problems and be better than just reacting to challenges, to where we can be proactive and shape our futures on our own terms, which any business founder and CEO, that's what it's about. Being ahead of herd. We have all the right language, but how do you do that? And how do you embed that and teach that and inculcate that in yourself as leader and in those that follow you as part of your team? You have to put them through, you have to invest in that. And one way is this kind of retrospective future storytelling, these walk with me's, to help them. You're kind of putting them into a leader laboratory experiment of giving them the license to think around the corner. So I employ techniques called fictional intelligence, useful fiction, and my own variation called speculative futures, to give them the license and to start to build that humble confidence in, let me think about tomorrow. And wow, I get more confident. You see probabilistically that I'm more right increasingly as I do iteration after I do iteration of foresighting and forecasting the future. A meteorologist gets better with their forecasting models the more they can do the foresighting. Same thing in the business world, looking at the technology we have today and stretching the imagination a bit, not science fiction, not to the point of science fiction, but science now and right around in the day after tomorrow. Be able to practice that, build the muscle memory, build a humble confidence in that creative thought, and then to be able to now be informed and empowered with the reason and rationale why you go back and study some of the history that I have on the books here. Purposeful
Fascinating.
revisits to historical case, because the purpose is solving our practical problems today and getting ahead of herd and ahead of problems and puzzles for tomorrow. That's really what us. And if we're going to
Using their
defeat compound, we're going to beat the compound security problem and build that resiliency that I talked about. We have to get ahead of the problems. It's more about preventive treatments, preventive health, prevention,
Love
and
it.
investment.
Love it. Well, last time question, just because of time, and I would love to talk to you for another couple hours on this. I think it's
Sure.
fascinating. But last question is, what is the question you wish people would ask you, but they don't know to ask you? They don't know to
Oh,
ask you.
wow.
They never ask
Yeah.
you. You never get asked this question. And you just
Yeah.
wish people would ask this because you would love to be able to tell them.
I mean, you've kind of given me the opportunity to do so today, David. It comes down to this, ask me about my understanding of what strength is, what power and force is, so that I can talk to you about resilience and resiliency. Right?
Love
That's
it.
the question I always want to get to. That's the question I oftentimes, all too often, because we're so locked in a traditional understanding of what constitutes force, what constitutes strength, whether it's what constitutes being a strong man or a strong woman, right? It's some of that traditional stuff. It's part of that oak like strength, but without the willow tree flexibility and redundancy, effective redundancies, you can build brittle systems. If we come to problems, like a company comes to a technological challenge in their business model, and they're only focused on one widget, one technological solution, they've really and they see the strength in it and its potential on the back end. That's a single point of opportunity, maybe profit win bearing benefits, but it's also a single point of failure. We do this in supply chains, right? We limit ourselves to single line supply chains, to energy resources, et cetera, et cetera. And we create these things. I know in the military, our logistics channels, we had a whole philosophy that we put to bear and almost caused us to lose not only battles, but whole wars, and what we call just in time logistics. It's true as much in the defense sector as it is in the commercial sectors. The resiliency investments in effectiveness over efficiency, frankly, investing in multiple channels of supply chains. When compound wicked problems hit, you'll be able to absorb that. You may lose one or two lines of logistics and supply lines, but it's not going to put you completely out of the game. That's a complete reversal and a complete flip on our traditional models, which are very efficiency driven, because you're trying to exploit that margin between investment and marginal utility of supply, right? That under compound insecurity, systemic conditions, that model just doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't work anymore. It's a gamble.
Well,
It's no longer something that you can actually mitigate in terms of a compound risk. It becomes a
yeah.
gamble, and that's the difference between high risk and gamble. High risk are not mitigatable,
Well,
gambles are not mitigatable.
I love that you shared that insight, and everything you had to say is just fascinating. What if someone wants to learn more? What is the best way to get in touch or learn more about you?
The perfect gateway is to visit the mothership of what I call the WISE ecosystem. It's the website, Wilson Wise Consulting, and you can find that at wilsonwiseconsulting.com. From there, you'll see the two, keep with the metaphor of the mothership, you'll see the two major platform satellite scout ships. My podcast, it's a visual audio experience called The Civic Brief, and also its companion Substack newsletter. I post articles and essays that light the nexus of defense, development, diplomacy, and commercial tech. On the Substack, it's called Compound Security Unlocked, and it's Compound Security Unlocked at at Substack.com. So those are
Very
the
cool.
three ways to contact me. Please do love to chat. Love to have folks subscribe and join. The subscription is free. Come join us on the platform. And if you're dealing with a puzzle, a problem within a larger puzzle, and dealing with any type of transition, Wilson Wise is here to follow and assist. Shoot me a
Fantastic.
note.
Well, Ike, thank you so much for being part of today's show. I so appreciate all of your insights and knowledge. It's absolutely phenomenal. Folks, thank you for listening. This is Inside the Leader's Mind. I'm David Susan, and I hope to have you join me on the next podcast. Thanks so much. Thanks again, Ike.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, David.